Hello, hello, Crafty Crandall here, and today I want to talk about art block, and specifically how I recently overcame a bout of art block that I was experiencing with regards to my own art. What you see me doing here is arranging cut up pieces of magazine. I have a bunch of old magazines in my house, and an idea that I've had floating around in my head for so long is just to use the old yellowed paper as a backdrop for a painting. I have never actually done it, and so this was my first time finally taking the plunge and actually executing on an idea that I've had for a really long time. And I think that's where I want to start with my discussion of art block. I tend to find that I gather ideas at a more rapid pace than I can actually execute on any of the artwork. I constantly have new art ideas. I'm constantly sketching them out really quickly on tiny little post-it notes because I don't want to lose the ideas. And I'm constantly making a list of songs that have lyrics that I want to depict in my song sketchbook. And so I find that I just never have time to actually execute on these ideas that I have. And I think that that's where the art block starts. I will then say that in addition to not having the time to execute the ideas that I want, when I do have time, I often don't feel as inspired as I did in the moment when I had that idea. So I think that that's kind of where my art block stems from and why it's happening, because I'm not executing on the artwork that I want to execute on quickly enough. I'm letting the ideas simmer for too long, and then when I ultimately have the time to go through and execute an idea, I just don't have that same spark of inspiration anymore. And so this is a piece that I think really helped me to fight that art block off. What you see me doing here is painting with my new gouache paints, which is another element that can help prevent art block as well, is using supplies outside of your normal realm. I think that that's more commonly discussed when it comes to art block, in addition to kind of taking on more of an easy approach. This was definitely the easier approach for this painting. I'm not doing it as a finished piece. I am basically copying a, photograph of this crane essentially into my sketchbook. I'm not really trying to stylize it or add any dramaticism to it. I am literally just painting it into my sketchbook. And I think that that helped immensely. It took the pressure off of the piece so that it didn't have to be this phenomenal thing. It was so much fun using the magazine clippings as a background. I think that that was a really creative element that just helped really spark the inspiration, in that it was both a creative and fun project and also a relatively simple piece to complete. I wasn't trying to master the world here. I was just having fun in my sketchbook. And I think that really, when it comes down to it, if you're feeling an art block or you're not feeling capable of creating art at the moment, take a moment and just try doing something tiny in your sketchbook. I think that getting any amount of small doodle in can help start to disrupt those feelings of, oh my gosh, I have to create this massive art piece to feel validated that I'm a good artist. I personally, having gone through that with this piece, I feel like that was a really good way to combat the art block that I was feeling. In addition, as I previously mentioned, I was also using a supply that I was really excited about. So I had just gotten these Holbein Acryla gouache paints, and I really wanted to use them in this sketchbook. But this sketchbook has watercolor paper, and I don't really like using gouache paint on watercolor paper as much. What I mean by that, is cold pressed watercolor paper. I use it on hot pressed watercolor paper pretty exclusively because I feel like the grain of the cold pressed paper is just a little more difficult to work with. And so laying down the magazine clippings helped immensely on that front as well, because although, yes, the seams of the magazine clippings were slightly more difficult to paint on than, say, flat paper, it was easier, in my opinion, to paint on the magazine clippings than it would have been to just use the sketchbook paper as is. So that also was immensely helpful. This whole process was just a really good exploration into my artwork and kind of exploring why I was feeling so art blocked, or why I was feeling just not motivated to paint. You know, I would create these paintings and just ultimately be unhappy with them for like a solid period of time, and it was really getting frustrating. I wasn't feeling happy with anything that I was painting, and I'm really glad that this kind of experimental piece dragged me out of that mindset, because although these are not the most mind-bogglingly amazing pieces on the planet, the exercise itself was fun and validating enough that I don't actually care how they look. It was a really enjoyable experience, and it ultimately helped destroy the art block that I was feeling, because I have since painted several pieces that I do really like, but also I do like how they came out. I think that the gouache paint looks really cool against the magazine clippings, and I think I might have found something that I kind of want to explore further in maybe a finished piece. But what I'm not going to do is pressure myself into making said finished piece until I either A, have a plan established for it, or B, feel really inspired and motivated to make that happen. Because now that I have this piece out of the way, the idea that I had in my mind has been executed on. So, you know, it's not one of those ideas that I feel very strongly on that I need to get done right away. So now I can maybe take a little bit more time, let it percolate a little bit further, so that I can come up with an idea for a really unique, fun, finished piece with this idea. I think that that's a really great way to kind of utilize your sketchbook in general, is to, you know, put on paper and maybe flesh out a little bit further all of these ideas that you have, and then use them to further create upon later, which I just don't do enough of. I was reflecting earlier actually about how I don't use my sketchbook for sketching anymore, pretty much at all. And so I think that might be in part why I also feel art block, is that I just don't do enough loose explorative sketches. And so I think that that would be another tip from me, in that this piece was more of a loose explorative piece. It might not look like it because it is, you know, somewhat involved, but it was definitely more of an experimental design and something that I've never done before. So definitely takeaways from this this video, if you want takeaways from me, or my takeaways from this experience, were definitely more so to don't be afraid to get loose. Don't be afraid to spend 10 minutes on a painting. I mean, literally, that was real-time footage of me doing that. And although I cut out every time that I like took my paintbrush away from the paint for you, it only took me about, 10 to 12 minutes to paint that. So in reality, these were not like time-consuming art pieces, and I think that that really, really helped. Now here you see me painting a second piece, because to be honest, one was not enough, and I had already laid down the paper for it, so I decided to go ahead and paint this for you. I did speed up this footage because, to be honest, this painting isn't nearly as interesting in my opinion, and to be honest, I didn't like the outcome of it quite as much. But this piece, because I don't like the outcome of it as much, just further reiterates the fact that to destroy your art block, to get rid of those feelings of I don't want to create, or I'm not going to create anything good, I think that you almost have to go into your sketchbook, create something that might not be quote unquote good, and just face those feelings head on. And so really that was my primary takeaway from this, was to get your sketchbook out, doodle, sketch, look up a reference and copy it. Whatever ends up working for you in the end, I don't think that it is one set thing. I think that it's something that, at least in my case, I had to kind of explore. So in this case, yeah, I'm following a reference. This is based off a very famous Japanese painting, clearly. And so, you know, this is not me trying to like stylize anything or make anything new. And so I think that just in finding what worked for me, you know, I managed to get rid of this art block and have since succeeded with my artwork. I apologize if that's an extremely drawn out, wordy, nonsensical way of saying, hey, I found something that worked. But, you know, hopefully you've gleaned something from this. So, just to kind of summarize for both myself and for you if you're watching, my first step to destroying art block was just to try something completely new and out of the box, something that I have never done before. My second tip would be to get loose, stop caring about the outcome, and either follow a reference or honestly just doodle anything and see how it comes out. If you're doing it in a completely different way than you've ever done before, then you're automatically imparting some form of creativity onto the work. So I think that just getting creative is truly my tip for destroying art block. Do something outside of your realm. Figure out, like, it doesn't even have to be a unique idea. It could be something that you saw in a YouTube video. People constantly do those like blob drawings and say that those work really well. So maybe if you've never done those before, I know I haven't, give it a try. Paint a bunch of blobs in your sketchbook and then draw on top of them whatever comes to mind. I think these are some really great exercises just to kind of get you into the flow of making a new art piece and then executing on it and just feeling how it feels. That's at least what I really needed to do, and I'm happy to report that it worked. So hopefully this helps you. If you're going through an art block, I highly encourage that you just take out your sketchbook, get creative with me, and give it a shot. Let me know how it goes in the comments below. I would just like to comment at this point in the video that the gray here that I added makes me so sad. I really liked how it looked with the blue streaks, and I am disappointed that I added the gray here. I think that it came out okay in the end, but I think it would have been better if I had just stopped there. So that was a little bit disappointing in this painting process. But regardless, it achieved what it was meant to achieve, so I am overall happy with the result of this painting. But to be honest, that's actually why I sped this footage up, because I didn't want you to see in real time just me slogging through this like rework of the piece that I was already should have been happy with, but clearly wasn't because I ruined it. And honestly, like, I leave this footage in here. I could have just cut the footage. I leave this footage in here because I just want to demonstrate that, like, not every idea that you put into place is going to work, and that's okay. We are all artists. We all, you know, I wouldn't even say make mistakes. We all have pieces that we don't necessarily love, and we all have pieces that are more of a learning process than others. And this one was wholeheartedly a learning process, and I am so glad to have done it. So with that, guys, I think that's about all I have to say. I'm sorry if I've beaten a dead horse 9 times. I'm trying to get more succinct, but it is just not my strong suit at this point. So there you have it. I hope this video was in some way helpful for you. Please, if you liked it, give this video a like. Consider subscribing to my channel. I post new art and book related videos every Tuesday and occasionally on Fridays. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!